meaning you had this style of tendering where public participation was in the forefront of everything, and you would actually pay the people who tendered when everyone from the public is satisfied that the projects were good. And that time was an interesting time because we will see other governors come to benchmark in Makueni, which is a very impeccable record. You are also Minister of Environment during Kibaki's time, and I've been following you for quite some time. So my question is, these current governors, what do you think is the biggest problem? Don't they have proper advice? Are they just greedy, or they don't have plans for their counties? That's the first question. The second question is, the region, the eastern region, where we have perennial water problems. And then recently we saw very interesting times when floods were experienced. What will you advise that the people who are currently leaders in that region should do about the water situation? I'm particularly not from that region, but it's something I would like to hear what you think about it. Thank you.
Afro, Cedric, am I supposed to answer each question or after a few?
Let's take. Let me take a couple of more. Let's see, Hannah. Hannah, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much, Afro. Professor, thank you for joining us. And the senator went on telling us a lot of things that actually only brought to light that this system is not working. If him as a senator cannot get documentation from a governor and he has to go to court and he still cannot get those documents to prove wrongdoings in his area, then you can imagine what a normal person, as a local citizen, and how much tight his hands are. This is further proof that this system is not working. But he's actually told us a lot of things that are not right. Public lands that are taken or are sold illegally to people, and the place he was talking about was a border city that till the airport is no longer in the hands of the local authority. So him in that kind of position and facing all these issues, court cases, trying to go to court to obtain public information that would to correct the wrongdoings or to prove the wrongdoings. He also mentioned about public participation, that he got documents of tenders that then the court refused for him to use those as evidence. So this proves that this system is not working. It's not the people, it's the system that is allowing the looting, it's the system that is allowing the corruption, and the barriers that are put for the person who wants to prove the wrongdoings, rather than make it easier for the person who wants to prove the wrongdoings. Coming back to you, Professor, because for a reason I asked him about the whistleblowing, and without the whistleblowers, then we are none the wiser, unless you're in the same system and like Omtata, and you find out things are wrong. But if you're in a public domain, it's really difficult. So what I wanted to ask you is, because he mentioned about protecting the whistleblowers, I think that is, I think he got it mixed with witness protection. So maybe if that whistleblower goes and gives evidence in court, then he goes into witness protection. But as a whistleblower, you are a whistleblower. There has to be a law within any public facility that could give that could actually encourage a good working environment, an environment where somebody could whistleblow without him being known. So could you please, and the laws that we have at the moment and how we can improve on those whistleblowers, and those whistleblowers do not really have to give to individuals who are within those laws, or within that working framework, they can release this information to investigative journalists when they could do their work, and this can be come to the public domain. So my question really is in regards to that. How can we improve on whistleblowers, and how can the system be fixed? Because there's so much hurdles in it. From everything that Omtata has said, it's not working. It's not delivering for him. How is it going to deliver for me? Thank you, Professor.
Let's get a question from Miriam.
Thank you. Asante sana Kivuta for addressing the procurement issue, because I am very concerned with procurement in Kenya, mainly because I do business with government and I know that we supply at 60% above the market rate, which is unacceptable. So I had asked a question earlier, whether it's possible to have county procurement acts to streamline the procurement system. And my other concern is why are counties and also the national government, but not so much, but counties, having trouble paying within 90 days of supply. I think that's one of the reasons why people are inflating these supply rates. Yes. So is it possible to have this done on county level? And is it possible for us to also be able to pay within 90 days of supply? I think this will also enable the youth to do the supplies business, because the youth are not able to do it, mainly because it takes up to 2 years or maybe 3 years, sometimes never, to get your payment. So I am interested in the supply area. The second thing I wanted to mention is that I do see the president's frustration when he's busy telling us that, you know, I'm doing this development and this development, I'm working. But the challenge is that the mwananchi is not feeling the effect of whatever he's working on. So when we go to the county level, for example, I have traversed the whole country and I see that the road networks are very good. But it's very embarrassing to drive on a very smooth road and not even meet 2 cars in 1 hour. Like you can drive a whole 50 kilometers without even meeting one single car on those roads. So is our focus on the wrong thing? Because what is the advantage of having a road network in a county where there's no economic activity going on? I don't know why people have to take their maize out of their counties, sugarcane, all that. Why can't counties focus on producing a complete product to the other counties? For example, the counties that are dealing with sugarcane, why can't you produce sugar in that county? When you have maize, why can't you produce flour in that county? I think those are the issues that counties need to focus on. So on the road networks, very good job. But to me, I think that we are not focused on the development programs that directly affect mwananchi. It's something that needs to be challenged, and it's something that needs to be followed up on. On the salary issue, again, my other very major point of concern, we can't have 30-something counties that are paying above the threshold that has been recommended. So how can we challenge that in court? Because as the senators were speaking, they seem to be very sincere when they're talking about the MPs, about the president, but the counties on their own are like a small country. You cannot be talking about the national country paying above the 35% of wage that is recommended, but on the county level you're doing the same thing. As a senator here confessed, they are also on the 40-something%, which is way above what is recommended. So how can we challenge this on a county level? Because I believe that change starts from mashinani. So if the counties can push to have this change in the counties, if the senators can challenge to have this change in the county, then it will be possible to push it on a national level. Yeah, thank you. So those are my 3 concerns, Kivuta, and thank you very much for touching on the procurement. Again, can we do this on a county level? Asante sana. Thanks so much, Afro.
Kimutai, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, please shoot your question.
All right. First of all, thank you for giving me an opportunity. And secondly, I A lot of my questions and concerns have been answered, so I'll yield a lot of my time back to the host. But there's one particular concern that I have not heard. Over the last 3 weeks, we had a lot of abductions, and the major concern was Safaricom was giving out the location of these individuals. So my question probably to Omtata is how safe really are our private data, and how can we do what can be done really to protect the privacy and the data of the citizens? Thank you.
Thank you, Kimtai. Nice and short. Eric, you had a question for Governor Kibwana. Eric, can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry.
I'm talking to Eric. I'm trying to get a question out of Eric. Eric, no. Ayo.
Or maybe they can put up their hand.
Okay. Guys, put up your hand. If you don't, I have to bring people up. So if you don't have a question, I'll have to drop you and bring more people. But Governor, you can go ahead and answer. They get the next round of questions.
Okay. Thank you. Very much. There was a whistle blow up protection bill in Parliament. I don't know whether Omtata will be able to advise us whether it has been concluded, because there was attempt through that bill to guarantee more protection for whistleblowers, witnesses, and so on. And really, even when such law exists, the question still goes into how do you get still protected when they are powerful people who you may be proceeding against in terms of revealing their corruption, revealing criminality or stuff like that. And that's one of the basic problems with sometimes we have good laws, but the implementation is a major problem, just like we are saying for the Constitution. And we shall remember, even during the ICC times, it was more of civil society, it was more of the international community trying to offer some kind of protection to some of the witnesses, because by then our laws were still deficient in terms of protection of witnesses, of people who, if it's corruption matters, have indicated that there is this issue. And many people actually even get afraid of reporting to ASCC because they believe that even when they are allowed to do so without mentioning their names and all that, they still believe that their identities will be discovered. So I think, just like was stated, that if a senator cannot get some of this information, what about any other Kenyan citizen? So there are issues there. There are issues about how do we get a culture of rule of law, so that when laws are passed, and including the fact that within our constitution, international law, which has got all these elements of witness protection and all that, is law in Kenya, so that even there can be recourse to using international law, because any law that we, like all the covenants that we have signed and ratified, all those are law in Kenya, but we still have not developed that culture initiative of being able to use international law itself, which is part of Kenyan law. So I think here we still have to say, even as the laws, like Omtata will tell us about what has happened with whistleblowing law, witness protection law, but even when those laws are there are powerful forces which try to make sure that they don't operate. Of course, in the constitution, there's the right of information. We are supposed to get information from the state and from all that. And that is why Omtata is still going to court, wanting to get, certain information. And this is a critical area of, unless it's really information about military things, about some of the military things, which you don't easily provide because of if they will be accessed by enemy, whatever. But most of the information in the public domain, should be able to, a citizen should be able to ask for it. And the law says, sometimes you may have to pay some little money for if it's those photocopying or whatever it is, or whichever way it's transmitted to you. But getting this information going forward is very critical in terms of the democracy, the new Kenya that we want to create. The salaries, counties which pay more than 35, there's also an historical aspect, because some of the counties like Nairobi, like Mombasa, like Kisumu, under the original council, city council, municipality, whatever, they had employed very many people. And those people were given over to the county governments, and they were permanent and pensionable. Even their salaries had been negotiated just before the constitution came into being, and they were actually higher than the salaries of people working at the national level. So there's that historical issue which has not been corrected. And then, of course, there is the truth of people employing, because they are, they want to employ people, will campaign for them, vote for them, people from their clans, tribes, and all that kind of stuff. And so there has to be rationalization. And there have been attempts, even at both county level, national level, to look at the wage bill. Because if a lot of the money is consumed by wage bill as well as recurrent, the other aspects of recurrent O&M, then it means it's only 30% that is supposed to do development. And that's why a lot of the counties are not showing result from that 30%, 30%. And even at the national level, it's still the same problem. Although we have about 1 million people employed in the public sector, both national and county government, still the money that goes into the salaries and O&M, operation and maintenance, dwarfs what goes into development. And that's something that requires to be looked at as we go forward, because what the Gen Zs are doing must involve creating how do we want to see the new Kenya? Can there be a manifesto of this is how it will look like? And these issues that we are discussing, and many issues in these spaces with Gen Zs and so on, must come into some like looking at the Vision 2030 and saying, can we have something now more than Vision 2030, which really says how do we get from all these problems we have had since independence to something that now a new vision, and I think that is where a lot of what we are saying should be accommodated, not just the short-term things that we are saying, we want this to happen and this to happen and this to happen. A lot of the debates, like the debates which the Gen Z, some of the Gen Zs had with the president, and there was, of course, some disagreement among the Gen Zs. But apart from those short-term things that need to happen, it is now, how do you plot for how the future will look like? Where is that vision? And some of the vision would be like, why can they be value addition to these counties? Because industrialization, when one looks at India, China, all those countries which were supposed to be third world and which have progressed, you have industrialization starting even from home, from these local situations, whether now it is a county in Kenya, and there have been attempts at value addition from the county level, and this is, something that, without giving many examples because of time, some of what we did in Makueni and so on, and what is happening in many counties, this is something that is very important to do. And even the question about the priorities, is it road network, is it what? It depends on how the public participation is done, especially national public participation, because sometimes the counties people, the location is, it's not very huge, and you can have people actually contributing if you wish to get them to get involved. But the national level, sometimes, people come like during budget, just to the county headquarters, and that's it. So if there is good public participation, then people will tell you, maybe here we don't need roads. Here, like the question about Eastern region of water, we need water. How do we do water harvesting? There is, for example, a Bishop Masika, where through water harvesting, communities in his area have been able to do agriculture where they export abroad and they do organic agriculture. And it is through just 1 acre farm pond, water harvesting and all that stuff. Eastern region, they're waiting for the Thwake Dam. If again the irrigation, was done and it was done properly, not like what happened in Tana River, you can get the water issue and irrigated agriculture to happen if now we focus in the things that people want. So why do some counties appear to do badly? Maybe others do well. Is there a problem of planning, or are people greedy? I think one of the issues that I find very problematic is, particularly after the first 5 years, maybe new governors came in some of the counties, and after the 10 years, other new governors came. And a lot of the times, those who succeed don't want to continue the work that has happened before. Because there was maybe competition before, they say that they will debunk what happened and they will do their new thing. So you get ghost issues, projects that are halfway, and all that kind.
Hello, Governor, we have lost you. Guys, can you hear him?
No,
he
we can't.
disappeared.
Oh, yeah. They are fighting you.
We lost him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So that is an issue that needs to be looked at carefully, so that there is that succession, and people don't just say we are starting new things. We will not. For example, sometimes they come, they find a budget in operational, which was prepared by the outgoing regime, and then things that already had even been procured, they change that, and you're not supposed to change that in law, because if already somebody had a contract and they were doing a job, and then you vary the terms, that is problematic. Why can't county governments pay within 90 days of supply? If they have money, they should. If they have money, they should, because sometimes they don't have money from the national level. Sometimes the money delays 2 months, 3 months, and so there is a problem there. And of course, if governors, if in some situations there are officials who want to be given kickbacks to pay, that also sometimes is an issue. If some governors have done projects outside the budget, like you go somewhere, you're excited, people tell you, we want you to do this for us, and you do a project outside. So when it comes to paying, you have a problem, because control of budget, will be constrained to give you money for something that was not in the budget. But having said that, I think by and large, the devolution has really assisted our country, because there were places where there were not those roads that were being talked about, and health facilities and all that kind of stuff. But they still work to be done in terms of like making sure that you have those economic blocks. There was a law which Wamalwa was trying to get into parliament, but it did not see light of day. So that those economic blocks of several counties coming together, because we didn't in the constitution get the regional governments, but you need also bigger entities so that even investors get interested in them and they can do bigger things and all that kind of stuff. And I have to apologize for myself and Omtata because we have taken a bit of time, but it's sharing, and especially the sharing of Omtata. I thought there were things he said which are not normally in the public domain, and they help us in terms of navigating going forward, and particularly for Gen Zs. And I heard that he said I'm a professor of law, and he said he knows a lot of law. He can even teach constitutional law. But now listening to one of the questions he was asked, and him saying I'm a professor of law and all that kind of stuff, I thought he was telling me that maybe he would like me one day to be his Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me take a couple of more questions from Nduta. Nduta, is there?
I think we have to let Professor go. Sorry, Duta. Prof, you had requested to leave at 1. Asante sana for being here. We hope that you're going to make it back to the space after mass. Lakini kama unaenda maandamano tunakuelewa 100%. Asante sana.
Prof,
Thank you very much.
Prof, I won't take more than a minute. I'm just going to give me a minute before you go. You have raised a very important issue on projects on completion and the issue of everyone that comes into power changing up the projects, which is a very big issue that needs to be dealt with. That was really a key point. On the 3 executives, the 3 arms of government, I just wanted to ask you, how can we streamline the independence of the 3 arms of government? How can we ensure that they are streamlined to be really independent? Because as the president was speaking, he mentioned that he has sent home. He had a number of judges that he has sent home. And my question was, why is he sending so many? You can beat your chest, around sending so many judges home. Is he sending them home because they're not compliant to just being dependent? That was my big question. Thank you.
I think from the Constitution, thank you for that question. From the Constitution, it is clear that the Constitution is very clear about separation of powers, what the executive will do in terms of executing what has been proposed by the legislature and the judiciary in dispute resolution. So the constitutional framework is clear about what each arm should do, plus the commissions as well, because the commissions are very, very important. They were devised to also check the 3 arms of government because of the imperial presidency that we had to share power. And of course, when they are effective, the commissions, that becomes very, very, very important. So some of what happens is if, for example, the legislature is subordinated because people, for example, CDF is one of the things that is used to control MPs, because if they give tenders for themselves, if they do that kind of stuff, then they are normally told, if you don't vote the way the government wants, we are going to take you to court. And therefore, they become feeble. If people accept that, they can be bribed, they become feeble. So again, it also depends, and this is something that I think Omtata explained a lot. It depends on the kind of quality, character of people that are elected, and people who are going to know that what they are supposed to do is very, very critical, and they must follow the law, they must follow the constitution. Same for the judiciary, so that people can't get bribed. And the judiciary, for example, has helped devolution a lot. When the executive was fighting devolution, they helped, a lot in terms of protecting it. But the executive in our country, historically, has believed that it is more than first among equals, and it can override the other arms, other organs, or public organs, and so on. And so there has to be a big mindset. And I think, given that, for example, today you can see the executive, you can see the legislature, you can see, them beginning to listen to the citizens in a more genuine way. I think this is something that requires to be continued so that the citizen is not a bystander. Article 1 is real. And that's why the civic education and the Gen Z movement, these are life-saving things for our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor, for your time. I think we're going to release you, let you be on your way. But thank you so much for the knowledge share, and thank you for
Yeah, I
dialoguing
think
with
Afro,
judges.
you have to create a space where governor and other legal minds can come and help us navigate through the legal in any ways. But asante sana, Prof.
Thank you.
Yes. I'd like to pass the microphone to Nasra. Nasra, mic ni yako, karibu.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you can hear me. So today, firstly, I'm really grateful to be part of this very, very important conversation on a very, very key milestone for Kenya. So I'll touch on a few things. One, I want to talk about Sabasaba and give not just the importance, but the parallels between the previous Sabasabas and the current one with, the young people leading. And then second, what I see as an opportunity for us, or focus areas for us to take us the way forward so that we don't lose momentum. And then third, some of the key things I think that have been overlooked that need to be addressed from a citizen's perspective. And then I will touch on the issue around politicians and representatives or leaders or servant leaders in that regard. And then I'll definitely make some comments from what I've heard from the other speakers. So, to kick off really, the Sabasaba, which is essentially the pro-democracy protests, brought away some key takeaways for me. And I think, the parallels are clear, both in the previous ones and the current one. There's political repression, and that's, natural because the citizens are trying to, rattle the status quo, and those who, have benefited are definitely going to be fighting to remain in the comforts of the status quo as it is. So, in the past, it was a fight against one-party rules. But now in the present day, Sabasaba, even though we have the multi-party democracy on paper, what we have is a regime that has strategically weakened the other arms of government, like the National Assembly. So even as we journey from one party to multi-party, it's also important for us to realize that these arms of government, these arms that are supposed to be doing their jobs, have to be not only independent, but strong enough to implement their roles. So the more things change, the more they remain the same, in that it's a different dynamic, but it's the same issue, that we need these arms to work for the people. And then another parallel is the government response. So even, in the past, there was a violent crackdown, but similarly now we had a similar response. And in as much as the president mentioned that there will be no abduction under his watch, we've not seen any of the killer cops arrested, and that's something of concern, because it's one thing to say something, but it's important to back that with action. And that's something that is a parallel between past and present that we need to strongly push for change. The third is definitely the impact on the political landscape. So, just like in the past, there was a pressure for reforms and there was international attention that led for us to have a platform to change. I, however, want to emphasize that insofar as the international attention, I think, and you may disagree with me on this, but the international attention, at least from the global North players, was very delayed. And it could have been forthcoming very early on in this conversation, before people died, before people were abducted. And that's something that struck me as problematic, because when we talk about a democracy, it means, irrespective of the divide, whether you're in the global South or the global North, you have to stand by what you claim you're following. In this regard, that was wanting then, and I think it's wanting now. And then in the past, the Sabasabas were about transitioning to a multi-party democracy. What is starkly different this time is that this Sabasaba is purely a citizen-led democracy, and it's a citizen-led push for accountability. And I think this is a huge win, because it means that Kenyans have taken their voice back. Largely, I think we need to applaud the fact that we have a strong document like the Constitution, but I also think citizens leading this conversation is powerful, because I think citizens have realized that, whether it's the opposition or by and large the political class, they've been somewhat compromised or rendered inefficient in certain ways. So I think by having citizens at the forefront of this conversation, and please, I urge you, I am part of the political class, but I want to urge you to ensure that this remains a citizen-led democratic movement, because it ensures that there will be no handshake that compromises this movement. There will be no agendas that compromise this movement. And I say this because the advantage that citizens have now by leading this conversation is strictly because citizens will feel the impact directly. And also, you've had people speak the same language for so long, and you've had the same outcomes. I encourage you, and I emphasize that please maintain the same approach, so that no one utilizes this movement to gain clout or to drive their own agendas, because what's at stake here is really the democracy of this nation and accountability for those who are meant to serve. And I think in terms of legacy, the two differentiators here is that in the past, the legacy of Sabasaba was to encourage, a multi-democratic party approach, whereas here it's, youth-led and citizen-led. And I think what is critical about this legacy is that the youth have often been told that, especially more recently, that they are lazy, that they are not proactive. So I'm really proud that this particular Sabasaba, having the youth at the helm, means that they have done what no other body has managed to do in years within weeks. So I really want to applaud the youth for doing that. And I really want to applaud citizens for doing that. And so, taking now that aside, which is the parallels, what is the next step insofar as this being historic, and what can we take forward from what's happened recently? I think as a priority, we need the IEBC reconstituted like yesterday. I understand that the president has made a commitment of Tuesday, but in as much as that commitment is there, I would also be keen to peel the veil behind that. Will he really put people who will send his MPs home? I don't know. Those are questions that we need to factor in as we are thinking of this reconstitution. Whoever is part of that IEBC needs to reflect the Kenyan people's will, not the political class. Because, of course, they cannot be judge, jury, and executioner. That's definitely a conflict there. So is there a way that the Law Society of Kenya, maybe with private sector or maybe with other groups, that can come together to support this process so that young people's voices, the citizens' voices, is reflected in that reconstitution? The second opportunity I see here is the Law Society of Kenya has been an integral part of this conversation and process. So I think going forward, citizens can utilize the LSK, and I think it's a huge opportunity for the LSK at a national level to unpack the bills before the assembly, and that means then citizens gain an understanding on what's being discussed in a way that is simple and critical for the public to understand, so that they can then put the pressure on their MPs or senators, so that nothing that is against the will of the people is passed. And then similarly, LSK at a county level can push for the same for county bills. And what that does is it means citizens have an understanding of the impact of different pieces of legislation, both at national and county level. So you're never caught unaware. It's only when this finance bill was really pushed to the front that we then realized, actually, there's the land amendment bill, there's the conflict of interest bill, there's the AI one as well. So I think that becomes critical. And then in terms of austerity, I think, one, there needs to be all unconstitutional offices disbanded. And then second, we need to have a structured approach or a formula that looks at salaries, which looks at the economy and a benchmark of Kenya versus other countries. What's the fraction of the GDP being utilized to pay public servants? And I think what's important here is we have a very big opportunity with e-governance and data-driven decision-making. And here the opportunity is we can actually monitor the MPs, the senators, the MCA's contribution, especially relying on the Access to Information Act and the Public Finance Management Act. Can there be a matrix where you have visibility on the bills, you have visibility on the projects, and you have visibility on the amount spent, and a independent third party which can confirm this? In closing, I want to also say that there's been a lot of conversations about politicians being, scum in many ways. And I agree. Politicians, a lot of them are not for us. That's why it's important for us to differentiate between politicians and representatives. My seniors, Senator Omtata and the former governor, Kibwana, represent a political class that were keen on serving. And that becomes super important for us to think about. When you want to have someone who is serving, they need to be a servant first. They need to understand their representatives in trust. Therefore, their authority is delegated and can be taken away. And public service should be and is about serving all the people, including those who are not like you and who can't do anything for you. And so as you think about your leaders going forward, please make sure they either have a public record of service, which is clearly available for you guys to confirm and verify. And lastly, there should be also a record of achievement if they're handling important documents like health, transport, and others. Because if we don't have that public record of accountability, we will be having the same conversations year in, year out. I'll stop there for now, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nasra. Yeah, wow, that was powerful. Lovely.
Yeah, I had a question about that, Nasra. You're an MCA for which county? And also, what are your achievements, as you actually just pointed out right now? That's something that we needed to ask. I wanted to ask all the people from the government officials that came here, what are your achievements in the office that you serve right now?
Thank you so much, Lovely. So I'm an MCA for Nairobi County, and I'm a nominated or a special elect MCA. And essentially, I was nominated on the basis of being a minority and also to bring in the expertise of two things. I'm a lawyer by training, and I have a focus on sustainability in particular. And so in terms of achievements, in my capacity as a nominated MCA, the first thing I've done is I've supported Nairobi County on a pro bono basis, by the way, in pushing for actions that can drive the climate change agenda. That led to the Nairobi Governor's Office being certified as the first green government office in Africa last year at COP28. However, my biggest challenge with Nairobi County, and this perhaps you guys can really guide me here, I've also been pushing for a lot of the policies and bills in place to see how Nairobi can then unlock opportunities around the climate agenda. Key among them was during flooding, And just to give you context, so as a nominated MCA, we don't have bursaries, we don't have the equivalent of a CDF. So our voice and our agenda is largely tied with the partners we work with. So in the context of the flooding conversation, at a personal capacity, I was working with the Kenya Red Cross to support the different families and areas that were affected during the flooding. But second, I also lobbied FSD Africa to see if we can have a flooding resilience product, which would ensure that the city becomes resilient against flooding. Unfortunately, the Nairobi County is yet to pass the Climate Change Management Bill. I am not clear why this is not proceeding, despite several efforts, but perhaps if you as citizens can put that pressure on, other MCAs, that would be really, really helpful. And then at a party level, we also set up a committee on flooding. Essentially, I come from the ODM party, and one of the things we did from a party perspective is we set up a committee where we were providing relief in terms of food and mattresses to affected families. We managed to support about 6,000 families in that regard. And then aside from that, I also pushed for motions. The first was against the audit or the collapse. It was a review of collapsed buildings in Nairobi County. That lobbying resulted in us adopting a resolution as a county assembly for the executive to implement structural audits on all residential buildings as a start. Now, again, the key challenge here is from an implementation perspective. And if you, follow my page, you would know that despite our efforts, the implementation part has been a drag. And again, here, I will need your support as citizens to understand why is this something that's consistent. And I've noted it's consistent across the divide at national and county. Separately, there was also the audit around, what is it called? A review of the approval process. And what ended up happening is we also had a conversation with the key stakeholders on the issue of approvals in Nairobi. As you would know, recently, Jerotich had an issue in Kilimani where people pretending to be Nairobi County representatives were cutting trees without any qualification. So I intervened in the short term, which led to a stop to that. But unfortunately, the next day they got the licenses. So those are some of the things I've been able to do. And I still, my approach is to lend support using my professional capacity from a legal perspective and also a sustainability perspective. But I'd also be keen to throw back the question to you, given my capacity as a special elect MCA, what else can I do to support conversations, keeping in mind we are MCAs who are focused on legislation but don't have, dare I say, the clout of projects. So it's heavily reliant on working with partners with a similar mindset, and of course supporting on ground. And I think the last thing I want to mention is on ground, I also did Mama Rasili Mali, which is working with women from less empowered communities to take them through a 10 to 11 week program around different focus areas, financial literacy, waste management, substance abuse, marketing, and a few other areas, so that they can have some sort of support in driving a more empowered approach when they're doing their businesses. I'll stop there for now, but thank you so much for your question.
Asante sana Nasra. KOT hatuja kusikia kutoka ingie, karibu. Ayo, I had seen you had your hand up earlier. I don't know if you're ready to speak. Charles, you're back. Hebu uliza swali yako.
Okay, I had two questions. I've had the opportunity to audit several state agencies and parastatals. And one of the things I noted in all of them is kuna hii circular of 92 that is quoted, where it does not allow any state agency or parastatal to invest their funds in any other securities besides government securities. From the public debt numbers, you will note that over 60% of public debt is actually local debt, not external debt. So my question was to Omtata, I can see still here. First, is that legal? And two, is that something that can be rectified? Because state parastatals are supposed to inject development in their areas of expertise. For instance, this housing levy that is being collected, the uptake is only about 2% or just about 3%. If you follow Julian Samboko, he breaks down the numbers. And the rest of the funds have been invested in government securities. So we have funds that are supposed to be invested. We have funds that are supposed to be invested in development that are being put in government bonds and in government securities because the uptake is low. So my first question is that Circular of 92 constitutional? Is it legal? And is that something that can be tackled through a court process to ensure that we have state agencies investing in what they are supposed to be, their expertise, basically? And then number two, our national debt is riddled with debt that is placed on us Kenyans through parastatals and state agencies. So, for example, even the Galana-Kulalo mess and that Aurora and Kimorer Dam, it all started with the Kerio Valley Development Authority. KVDA were the ones who essentially initiated that process of having that the dams so that they can be able now to run that project for Galana Kulalo. So, and these things are usually approved by parliamentary committees. So Ishongo was asked on news the other day, and he was saying he didn't even see when he was, because he was the chairman of the finance committee for the 10 years, or is it the 5 years, when that Aurora and Kimore Dam were happening. And he says, that interview is on, I think, NTV. He says he did not see the contracts and that some of the things there went like this, like that. So basically, he does not come out and say this is the contract. And he says at some point, the Aurora and Kimore was supposed to be funded by the developer. But then along the way, when things happened, it became now the state is borrowing. And it didn't go through parliament. It was approved by a parliamentary committee. So are these things legal, and are these things that we can stop? Because you find what is approved by parliament is a certain figure. What we end up with in the report after the financial year is another figure, because we have Ketraco borrowing, we have KVDA borrowing, we have other institutions borrowing, and this debt is placed on Kenyans by parliamentary committees, not through the proper process. What can be done about this, and is there a way to tackle this? So yes, those are my two questions.
Asante sana, Charles. Kindly drop so that we can allow other people to come on. Nasra, please drop also so that we can allow other people to come up. KOT, sema kitu, salimia watu.
Ni ajeni. I've been here trying to follow you na pia trying to connect with the people in my DM and also trying to bring the speakers on the panel. Nashukuru sana, by the way, I've been on the space tangu jana 3:30 p.m. na niko hapa tu bado. So those guys who are within Nairobi, personally naweza waambia tufike Uhuru Park because I'm on my way. Pia mimi nimekuwa nakula lunch tu kidogo, then I go there to Uhuru Park. Msiogope man, because there is nobody who is coming to harm us here. Yeah, we're only going to say goodbye to our fallen soldiers and also pay the last respect. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining our space. Now, we are looking forward to have these spaces because zimetufungua macho sana, especially when we're having people like Kivuta Kibwana. Personally, I met Kivuta Kibwana last month when we were attending a freedom writers session by Amnesty International Kenya at UON, and I really learned a lot from him. He has written a lot of books, zenye ni za freedom and also law. So guys, if you find time, kindly go through those books. Unaweza zipata anywhere on on internet na pia kwa bookshop. Otherwise, kazi nzuri. Back to you, Chege.
Asante KOT. So guys, we still have Senator Omtata, but I'd like to give guys an opportunity to air their views and then also ask him questions. Senator, I hope uko sawa, you'll keep writing the questions and guys can then we can give you a chance after a few people have at least spoken.
That's okay. That's in order.
Asante sana. Ayo, karibu, mic ni yako.
Asante sana. Thank you so much, Afro, KOT, and Shege, for hosting and co-hosting this space. I mean, it's quite fundamental. I've really learned a lot that I did not know about. So my question just goes to Bwana Omtata, and my question is just along the lawmaking process, and because I mean we are here because of punitive laws that were being tried to being injected in this country, and that's why we are here on this space today. And even as we reflect upon the Sabasaba Day, my question, as we look towards the 2027 Kenyan general elections, Dr. Omtata, how do you propose that the IBC should be reconstituted to ensure rather greater transparency, probably efficiency, and public trust? Because as we speak right now, we don't have the IBC, and thus we cannot go to election. No form of election can happen in this country as we speak. And from the previous elections, we all understand that the public have lost trust even in the IBC. And additionally, amidst the current climate of protests and killings and loss of lives and probably property in the country, what measures can be put in place to keep the current government accountable? And in light of the public debt crisis that that has exacerbated economic hardships, how can we ensure the effectiveness and impartiality of of the IBC in managing the electoral process, while also safeguarding the democratic rights and safety of all the Kenyans? Because we've seen the killings and nobody is coming to be accountable. It's coming forth to be accountable for the loss of lives, for the loss of property. It's just the public being blamed for what has been happening, and no government official has been taking accountability to account whatever has been happening in the country. So those are my few questions, if you don't mind. Thank you for the chance.
Wazi Ayo, thank you so much. And guys, follow Ayo, follow Afrocentric, follow KOT, follow myself. Let's follow all the people who are presenting. Let's retweet each other's messages so that we can keep this pressure on the government going. Nduta, I see you have your hand up.
Yes.
Let me give you a chance so that you can then drop and give others.
Thank you so much, Afrocentric. Mine, I will chime in a different angle. It is in regards to what I had mentioned earlier in terms of independence of the three arms of government. There was a lady before that mentioned about the constitution of the IEBC, and Nasra has also raised it up again. And Nasra was mentioning about the IEBC being reconstituted and representing the citizenry needs and so. My question to Omtata, before I give the question, is mine is to also thank Omtata for his zeal and commitment on activism. To ask my question, Omtata, who exactly appoints the commissioners of the IEBC, which has also been echoed by Oyo, that there is really a quick need for that to be constituted? Who exactly appoints the commissioners? Because we were having a conversation amongst ourselves, and it doesn't even seem to be clear in terms of the independence of the arms of government. Is it really the president that appoints them, or does the president appoint the tribunal and Does he just appoint the panel that just, takes them through before they are appointed by him or assented by him? So if in terms that he's also the one to appoint, how independent is that he's appointing the commissioners? How can we ensure that there is some independence? Because we've seen so much incongruent behavior. There is no independence at all in the three arms of government, especially the executive and the legislature. How can we ensure that there's some independence in the reconstitution, and how fast can we ensure that this IEBC is reconstituted? In terms of implementation, how can we tap on the action of implementation? He has promised on Tuesday, but what are the law guidelines in terms of the same? And I'll leave the question at that. Thank you. Thanks, Afro.
Thank you so much, Nduta. Kenya lady, I'm not ignoring you. Unajua wewe ni mama yao. Do you want to ask a question now, or do you mind holding on? Because at least you'd asked earlier, and I was just thinking, let's allow other speakers to ask their questions. Is it pressing?
It's okay. I'll hold on. Actually, I'm trying to put in an icon, like a like icon and a love icon, and then I end up raising my hand. So go on.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Lord Abraham Mutai, karibu. Mike ni yako.
Asante sana. Unichege?
Unichege.
Yes,
it's Chege.
I'll be very quick. I've been listening. I'll be very quick. I have a question for Senator Omtata. There's a time Senator will tweet ukisema that our debt has actually been repaid, all of it. I think it was the around 1 trillion. You said that tumelipa yote. So I was interested to know, where did you get this information, and if it is actually true that we've paid it, all of it, and if we've paid all of it, what are we now paying? Why are politicians, keep on saying that to con outside, national debt outside, yet you at some point you said you got information that we've actually paid all of it. So I'd be interested to know if it is true and where you got that information. Asante sana Chege.
Karibu Mutai. Wazi yo. Niaje.
Hey, what's up? Niaje.
Karibu Mike.
Thank you. And thank you guys for hosting this space. Afro, as always, man, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you using a platform to help us voice some of, how we feel about this government and about what's going on. I must confess, I'm a horrible public speaker, so forgive me if I have hiccups. I guess one of the questions that I was asking myself is, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing in these spaces after, what happened? And, I hear a lot of people talking about different things. And then I realized that we said we are going to sit down and strategize on a way to move forward. I think that this space and probably the upcoming space that we're going to have are supposed to be a tool to empower us, to empower the movement. I also appreciate, the legal minds like Senator Omtata, Dr. Kibwana was, I think, here before. I'm not sure it was in this space or a different space. Professor Kibwana, Nazra. But I guess the most important question that I need to ask is, a lot has been said, but what's the strategy? And how are we going to define it and redefine it? So that now, when we move forward, we are not just moving forward with a lot of words and a lot of just talking. We have a strategy that we are going to implement. And I guess the better question is, how many strategies have we had? And what strategy has worked the most? I think to just answer that question, even though it's kind of a rhetorical question, is I think the activism has worked as one of the best strategies. Someone has said that the things that we have achieved by this activism has probably brought the government to his knees to actually act. Okay? And then how do we harness this activism to solve Number one, short-term goals. Short-term goals, by that I mean recall MPs, question how much they make and can we fix that. And on short-term goals, for example, let me talk about recalling MPs. It's very important that Senator Omtata, you help us address this issue of IABC reconstitution and whether or not it's, because I've heard you speak about it, and it's like I'm trying to understand, do we really need it to recall these MPs? And if we do, then can we hold the government accountable for the days that they give us? Because there's a how and when. I guess the how is we are trying to constitute IABC, for example, for a short-term goal. Okay? When? The president has talked about next week, Tuesday, someday. Okay, so if that's not done, what do we do? Okay, as a movement, we can protest about it. Our protests again are peaceful. Now, Professor Kibwana spoke about dissolving the parliament for not implementing the gender rule. I think one of the things that we've been very loud about is the MPs who voted yes. But we haven't really necessarily appreciated the MPs who voted no. Okay? So what about those MPs who voted no? Could they be affected by something like this? All right? About long-term goals, we talk about voting. I guess, Senator Omtata, you can help us understand how to go about digital voting, like you mentioned. And more importantly, can we use IDs instead of voting cards? Because, some of the ways that we do, old ways of voting have been, so old, and can we kind of, use ways IDs? And I'm about to finish, Afro. On Professor Kibwana, I have to let you know, guys, this is one of the most educated people I know in government. In case you don't know, he went to the likes of University of London, GW, so he's right up there, okay? And apparently, he had open procurement, and he was able to do that very, very well. You know what's funny is that some of us who have small businesses and have been trying, in a Uhuru time, I was able to partake some of, the tenders. However, it was such a hard road to take, man, because it's like for you to even, so they make these tenders public, and then now when you apply, it's like there's a committee that you have to talk to, and then you have to do this, and by the time you get this tenders, bro, really? So for him to have been able to do this in an open forum, it is quite recommendable. And then also, he was able to implement free universal health care for his county, which is quite up there. And then more importantly, I think he introduced processing plants for things like mango and milk, and milk for farmers. Some of the things that some of our governors can take challenges. I guess being able to see what strengths you have in your county and, growing those strengths to help your people and to create employment. On Professor Omtata.
Please land.
Yeah, I'm about to land. I see you've had challenges on obtaining documents from court and so on and so on. I must say that the small court claim is one of the most corrupt courts that we have in the country. But the fact that you've gone through all that, okay, so it means that the system is not working. So what is the way forward? And I guess now I'm about to land with this final point. Do we protest every week? And if we are, what are some of the things that we need to list down so we can protest against by putting down when and hows, hows and when, and if it's not done at that particular time, we can go on the street. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.